Hey guys, hey, welcome to the Analog Life. In this episode, I will be sharing with you one particular tape that I got from the collection that I shared with you the last time. And if you have not already watched the video, it'll pop up right there. You can add it to your playlist. Basically, recently I purchased a lot of reel-to-reel tapes from the States. When I purchased these, I was going to use them actually to record my music onto them, just to do a digital analog conversion. But when I took delivery of the tapes, I realized that they actually had content on them, and some of them were actually original content that you will probably not see anywhere else. And one of them was this particular tape here. Pause the video and read all the details there. In attendance at this retirement party were some pretty big shots in the military. And I feel like I got my hands on something historic, and I don't want to keep it to myself, so I'm just going to share this with you guys in a series of uploads. I've taken the pains to actually digitize the tape, at least part of the tape. I'm still in the process of digitizing the whole tape. Those of you familiar with reel-to-reel systems would know the different speeds that you can record in. This was actually recorded at the slowest speed, which I'll display right here. And what that means is that it's mainly for speech. It's not for music or high quality recordings. So the quality is not as great. It's just for speech. So that also means that for one tape like this, it lasts for hours and hours of recorded. And so I've recorded maybe about almost 2 hours of content, but obviously I can't share all of that here. In the future, I'm looking to possibly host the entire recording on my website, so folks can go in and listen to the whole thing if you're so inclined. But here's about a 20-minute snippet of this retirement party, so sit back and enjoy.
Could I have your attention, please? Ready? Well, I'd like to welcome all of you. We certainly think this is a fine turnout. We appreciate all of you coming to join 22nd Air Force in celebrating the end of a distinguished and outstanding career for Don. I think we'd be remiss if we didn't also mention that we certainly want to recognize many of the sacrifices and contributions that Ellen has made to make Don's career so successful. Don and Ellen, I'd like to pass from Don and Kathy Ream. They're sorry they can't be here. As you know, Kathy's been in the hospital for a couple of weeks, and quite frankly, Dan's up to his neck in logistical problems in the household, and I guess only the girls would understand that. I'd like to recognize some of the special guests for the Sprills party tonight. First of all, their children. We have Leslie sitting here at this table. If you'd stand up, please. She's a recent graduate of Steilacoom Community College in Washington. And we have Warren, who attends Solano Community College. If you'd stand up, please, Warren. We have two other sons that are not here, but they're following in their dad's footsteps. Don Jr. is on Crested Cap in Europe, backseat of an F-4. And Bruce, he doesn't fly the airplanes, he just jumps out of them. He's over in the 82nd Airborne in North Carolina. We also have Ed and Peggy Reynolds of Danville, California. He's the chief pilot for TIA, based out of Oakland. I understand that he was the usher for Don and Ellen's wedding, and a couple of months later, Don was the best man at his wedding. If they'd stand up, please. We also have Bud and Hope Kirk of Antioch, California. They're good friends of the Spurls at Wiesbaden's. And I understand Bud is a basketball coach, and I understand he's also trying to get Bill Walton to come play for him. Would they stand up, please? We also have Don and Elaine McGann. I think a lot of you folks know them, outstanding friends of the Spurls. Don is presently mobilization augmentee to the commander of the Air Force Flight Test Center. He's also, as you might suspect, any friend of Don's is a pilot. He's a flight instructor for United Airlines at Denver. That takes care of the preliminaries. I've been informed, since it's buffet style, we have folks that'll come around. You can order wine from them. In the meantime, if table number 1 would go ahead and start the procession, and we'll have folks come around and let you know when it's your turn to go eat. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Don Lockstrom tells me it's that magic hour of 2100, which equates to 9 o'clock. If the guest of honor will please come over and sit down so we can start working on him. The guest of honor is now seated, and we can now begin. Don, they offered me the opportunity of speaking as the first speaker or as the last speaker. And I looked at their program, and I looked at what's ahead of you, and I decided that the prudent thing was to speak first. Because by the time they get through with you, I don't think you're going to hear what I would like to say. The first thing I'd like to say, and Don and Ellen know this, that General and Mrs. Kirk are not here this evening because the total force reserves were one step ahead of us. The day that General Kirk was announced as the new commander of 22nd Air Force, the reserves immediately called him and booked him for tonight. Not knowing that, we proceeded in our office to book him for the other Fridays and Saturdays and throughout the month of September and October. So he had a commitment. He is over at McClellan speaking to the 4th Air Force dining out. He asked me this morning to please express to both of you his regret for not being here. He will preside at your retirement ceremony, as you know, and wants very much to do so because he holds you in the same esteem that I do, and I think the members of our staff do. I'm not a man of many words, and I have thought of what I would say at this moment, and a thought came to me last night that there are several kinds of people who serve their country, basically servicemen and soldiers. And Don Spurl's a soldier. I think the difference being that we all go where we're told to go, and we all do what we're told to do. But there's a hardcore, brown shoe, old Corps guy that goes anytime, any place, does the job that's given to him, and does it to the best of his ability until the end, the very last day that he's around. And Don Spurl's that kind of a guy. In my capacity as the Chief of Staff, I have to award some unpleasant duties to people occasionally. And I've awarded a few to Don. Matter of fact, we gave serious thought 2 days ago to letting him return to work on one of his favorite cases. We have a young captain in one of the wings that feels that he is better suited to be working for the civilian industry, and the wing commander feels he ought to fulfill his service obligation, and he thinks all colonels are dumb, and he may not be wrong, but he's one of the few guys that will document it to his congressman. Anyhow, I sent Don out on what I thought was a very benign little investigation, and 5 weeks later Don came back. But he did it right, and he put it to bed, and the captain's still with us, and Don's still with us for a while. But the captain won't cause us any more problems. The bottom line, I think, is that we're here this evening to honor a guy that we've all known for many, many years in different capacities, a guy who's given his whole life to the United States Air Force and to his country. Someone I'm very proud to know, and I'm proud that and happy that I was able to come to 22nd Air Force to serve on the same staff with you, Don. And you'll be missed, and in spite of what the people who follow me might do to you, I want you to know that you're loved, respected, and it'll be a different place without you. And we wish you all good luck in the years to come, and lots of prosperity. Don?
For those of you that don't know me, I'm Don Sparrow's second in command, and I just knew the day when he retired it was going to be dark and dreary. All of us have shared his career at some point during the last 30-some years, but I don't think that all of us really know just exactly where he's been and some of the things he's done. So I'd like to cover just briefly some of his military history before we get into some other things. Don enlisted in the Army Air Force at Fort Banks, Massachusetts in September of 1946. After completing aviation mechanic school at Keesler Field in Mississippi, he was accepted for pilot training in an aviation cadet program. He attended primary and basic at Randolph Field, Texas, and graduated from B-25 Advanced School as a second lieutenant at Barksdale, Louisiana in 1948. After a 2-year tour as a troop carrier pilot at Lawson Field, Georgia, flying C-82s, whatever that is, C-47s, and of all things, a CG-15 glider, he was reassigned to the Far Eastern Air Force, where he flew combat in Korea for 15 months. His next 2-year assignment was at Donaldson Air Force Base in South Carolina. He's no longer a member of the Army. In December of 1953, Colonel Sparrow transferred to Europe and flew as a special air missions pilot for 2 years and as staff pilot for the Commander-in-Chief, USAF, for 3 more years. Returning to the Connes in 1959, he became Assistant Base Operations Officer and later Base Operations Officer at Bolling Air Force Base in Washington, D.C. His next assignment was to U.S. Strike Command at MacDill Air Force Base, Florida, where he was a staff pilot for the Sink Strike. Returning to the D.C. area in 1963, he was assigned to the Headquarters Command Aircrew Standardization Board at Andrews Air Force Base. He was reassigned to Special Air Missions in Wiesbaden, Germany in 1965, serving as chief for nearly 2 years before rotating in 1968. After attending survival training at Fairchild and flight training at
Hurlburt Field, Florida, Colonel Sparrow flew for a year as a night forward air controller at Nakhon Phanom, Thailand. His following CONUS assignment was Andrews for another year. He first joined MAC in the summer of 1971 as Assistant Deputy Commander and later Deputy Commander for Operations at McCord Air Force Base in Washington. He was assigned to 22nd Air Force in the fall of 1974, and he's been the Director of Training for the last 4 years. During his illustrious 32-year career, Colonel Sparrow has flown over 15,000 hours in more than 30 different aircraft, U.S. and foreign, throughout 87 different countries in both the free and communist world. He has logged over 1,000 hours of combat flying time. Colonel Sparrow has been decorated with the Flying Cross with 1 Oak Leaf Cluster, Meritorious Service Medal, the Air Medal with 10 Oak Leaf Clusters, and the Air Force Commendation Medal with 1 Oak Leaf Cluster. Tonight, we're going to give him some more decorations. Beginning with Lieutenant Colonel Parsons from the 7th Squadron.
Colonel Bergeron, in my tour of duty with 22nd Air Force, I don't know that they allowed anyone to come up out of the trenches and talk at one of these gatherings. But I think it's probably a pretty good idea, because those of us down in the trenches really know what's proper and what's right. And we also know better than you think how well or how to run 22nd Air Force. But that's not why we're here tonight. We're here tonight to talk about something that started about 4 years ago when Colonel Sparrow was attached to the 7th Squadron. And when all of that happened, strange things started happening in the 7th. Words up and down the hall like, hey, who's the tall, gray-headed colonel in the flying suit with the funny-looking patch on his shoulder? Yeah, and look at that strange round hat he wears. and words like, hey, and they've got him in command of the crew, too. Let's check 55-1. I think we get extra insurance if there's a colonel in command. But that changed, because the guys found out that he was a professional pilot. He was an excellent instructor. He had just the right amount of perfectionism in him, just the right amount of practicality, and he fit right in. And he kept fitting right in, right up until his last flight, which occurred just a few days ago. So, Colonel Sparrow, if you'll join me up here for just a couple of minutes. Spontaneously, out of the trenches, when...
Bring my glass on.
You better believe it. Yes, sir.
That stool is for you. You'll need it.
When,
It's got a seat belt, too.
when Colonel Sparrow completed his last flight, some of the folks met him out on the flight line.
I remember it well.
And out of the clear blue of the Travis Horizon arrived a fire truck. And for some unknown reason, the hose nozzle from the fire truck wound up in Andy Ward's hands. And I don't know who got wetter, you or me. And his OER's coming up, so we'll take care of that. But we got a few photographs that day with appropriate captions, and we've put them in an album for you. And we hope when you have time to think about us a little bit, you'll look through the album and remember some of the good times you had with the 7th Squadron. We know that anyone that's been a squadron commander and a DO and in the military for 30 plus years needs another plaque. There's only one thing you need more, and that's a wall to put the plaques on, right? Okay. But because you're a professional, because you're what you are, and you've been what you've been to our guys and gals now, we felt that it would be an honor if you would display our unit emblem on those walls, whatever it takes for all of those plaques. We'd be proud to have it there. So, to Colonel Sparrow, in recognition of a pilot's pilot and a crew member's crew member from the 7th MAS from August 74 until September 1978, a 7th plaque for you. And we'll hope you put it on the wall for us. Mrs. Sparrow, would you join us up here for a minute? The ladies of the 7th asked me to present something to you too. And what I've got here is a little 7th charm. And we'll hope that you'll put that on your charm bracelet, and when you see it, you'll think about the gals, because they think a lot of you. You've participated in their activities. You've been a real friend. You've taken them into your heart, into your homes, both of you. And we just hate to lose you. So what I'd like to do right now, there's several of us here from the 7th Squadron, and I'd like to have those from the 7th stand, if you would please. The ladies and gentlemen from the 7th Squadron, they're back there someplace. Now, we had a dining in this same room last night, and I'll not tell you how many people were here from the 7th Squadron, but it wasn't quite this many, Colonel Sparrow. Now remain standing, please. Remain standing. Now, there's some more people in this room that are attached to the 7th Squadron, the lucky ones that were selected to be 7th crew members by attachment. We'd like to have you stand too, if you will, please. They're all here? Okay, there's some more up here. Now, what I propose is three cheers for the Sparrow, but before we do that, we'd like to have any of the rest of you join us that feel that 3 cheers for the Sparrows is appropriate. If you'd like to stand too, please. And if there's anyone still seated that would just like to move around a little bit and make some noise, I propose 3 cheers for the Sparrows. Hip hip! Hooray! Hip hip! Hooray! Hip hip! Hooray! All right, that's not the quietest 22nd Air Force party I've ever been to. We're going to miss y'all. Thank you very much.
There's Ron. Hey, Ron. I was truly unaware that this was going to be a 7th Commander's call, but coming further up from the trenches, we have Colonel Jack Shepard that will make a presentation.
Well, that's up from the trenches is right. You know, Don and I spent some time together. I spent a year in 22nd Air Force, and then I went up to the wing. But you know, Larry Parsons was in standardization when Don and I were out on the line there, and it seemed like every time I flew with Larry Parsons, he wanted to give me a check of some kind. But little did he know that the day before, the Don Spirrell had flown with me and told me all the answers. Don, Norma, and I, and all of the people in the wing are privileged to be here tonight to honor you and Ellen. You're very special people to us. And not just because we knew you for a year in 22nd Air Force, but because of the contributions you've made to the wing. You know, Don Spirrell really is a pilot's pilot, and I think all of you understand that our experience level in the pilot force is not as high as it used to be, And Don, the contributions you've made and to our young pilots and flying with them and with all of us, we just won't forget. I want you to understand that the affection held for you by the 7th Squadron is undiminished in the rest of the wing too. We see you, we love you, we appreciate you. I think that most of you know or read about the fact that Don was greeted on the ramp and hosed down and champagne bottles were popped. But Don, I don't think you noticed that in the background some of the maintenance force were wearing sponges. And as soon as you walked away from the airplane, we had a task force of 6 maintenance people who got together and got their sponges going, and they picked up the water that was sprayed on you from the ramp, because we think that that water is going to be special to you in the years to come. And Don, this special water says compliments of the 60th Military Airlift Wing presented to Colonel Don W. Spirrell. And this is the only thing that missed you after your last C-141 flight. So we want you to take this, and when you look through the photograph albums, we'd like for you to take this and pour a little over your head each time so you'll remember exactly what it was like. And, you know, old dirty water off the ramp is one thing, I suppose, but we really think that you and Ellen are classy people. So there was other things out there on the ramp that time besides water. There was a little champagne. So we saved 1 bottle of it, and we'd like for you and Ellen, your first night on the road, to drink this and think of the love and affection that we hold for you in the 60th Military Airlift Wing. Thank you, Don.
Could we water the lawn with that?
Dr. Bill Rawlinson. He's in charge of the lawn.
Coming further up from the trenches, we now have a presentation by Colonel Gore. Jim?
Well, we've heard from the trenches and from up out of the trenches, and so now a word or two from the rut. Hi, Don, how you doing? You know, about once or twice a week for the last 4 years, why, Don's called me on the phone, and he always starts out the conversation with, "Hi, Jim, how you doing?" And usually I'm not doing pretty well. But his cheery greeting always makes the day a little better. I'll have to say that Don's always been part of the solution and not part of the problem. Don, you traveled to a lot of exotic places, and in your many years and many thousands of hours of flying time. Just think, if your last trip had been timed just a couple of days different, you might have got to Mombasa. I was told that you had a flight plan for that place in your pocket when you left here. I heard that you were prepared. Sorry we couldn't have worked that out. But unfortunately, you only got to Diego Garcia again. Yeah. Of all the places that you've been to, Diego Garcia is certainly on the list of exotic ones. And I think that you have probably been to Diego Garcia more often than anyone else in 22nd Air Force Headquarters. Possibly more often than anyone in 22nd Air Force. I don't know why you like Diego Garcia. I've heard there are no girls down there. A few donkeys, I think. But I really suspect the reason you like Diego Garcia is because in our normal route structure, I think it's just about as far away from 22nd Air Force headquarters as you can get. So Don, in recognition of your many visits to Diego Garcia, we in current ops who scheduled those flights and feel like we had a little bit of part in all that, would like to present to you an authentic Diego Garcia t-shirt. So authentic, in fact, that some sailor must be running around topless. And from everybody in current ops, Don, the best of luck to you.
Thank you, Jim. I know it well.
Well, attempting to get us out of the rut now will be Colonel Felix Gomez from, where is it? Command Center.
Gee, Don, I knew you were going to get a lot of junk, and you're not going to be disappointed. One thing about Don, we all know he flies a lot, but he also has a way of diverting and rerouting and getting to all the interesting places, as Jim said, like Diego Garcia. And I understand that in his flight suit right now, the one he's stealing from the Air Force, from the 60th, there's a pocket full of flight plans. We in Command and Control tried to decide what would be an appropriate presentation for Don, and since you were going to get all the junk, we thought we'd get something very useful for you. Had a meeting and couldn't come up with anything. Send messages to all the command posts in the Pacific, and they said, he's a hell of a nice guy, but gee, I don't know what we can give him. So we put it into the computer, and the computer spit out one thing. We've got a hell of a history on Don Spurl. We can always tell where Don is because that's where all the flight plans go. So aircrew tracking, we found the solution. Wherever Don is, that's where the flight plans go, and we can always tell where he is. So, Don, I know that retirement is sort of traumatic for people, and so you sort of have to wean them away from the business and from flying. And we know you have a trip that you have planned to Fort Walton, possibly to St. Louis. So we thought we'd give you something that's useful, not junk, something that will really help you. So we came up with a flight plan that I think will help you get there. I can't open it. Computer flight plan that takes them to Fort Walton with an alternate of St. Louis. It goes via the Los Angeles area to Las Vegas, Salt Lake City, Denver, down to Wichita, Dallas, Austin, San Antonio, Houston, Shreveport, and eventually on to Fort Walton. The ground speed will be 47 knots, which we know you always comply with the laws of the land, 55 miles an hour. Your driving time will be 58 hours and 38 minutes. And your average altitude will be 1,000 feet unless you drink that champagne. On behalf of the people from the entire command and control system, let me present you just a very small memento of our admiration to the soft-spoken colonel who was always understanding, cooperative, and just the greatest guy to work with there has been in 22nd Air Force. Don?
Thank you.